Hello and welcome to Hard Refresh, the official podcast from State of Social 2025. And what are we doing here, you might ask? Well, we are polishing off our standard issues State of Social crystal ball, and we're diving deep into the trends, technologies, cultural shifts, and maybe even the controversies that are likely to shape digital marketing in the next 25 years and maybe society at large. My name is Andres Lopez Varela. You can call me ALV, or my mates do. And today we are recording on the traditional lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people, live at State of Social 2025. Coming up in this episode, we do a hard refresh on influence. Influence has changed dramatically over the past 25 years. We've gone from celebrities fronting glossy ad campaigns to everyday creators shaping consumer behaviour and cultural trends. But what's coming next? Well, we're going to explore whether authenticity still means anything when everyone is actually just performing it, whether younger generations will tolerate advertising at all, and what it means for brands when creators and communities become their own economic force. And with AI-generated avatars entering the chat, we'll ask if human influence still matters or if trust itself will be redefined online. And joining me in the studio to talk all things influence is Dan D'Souza, Team Lead and Senior Community Manager at Quip, an online community building and social media management company. Dan, hello, how are you?
Good, how are you yourself?
Very good, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Sharon Smith, founder and CEO of leading influencer marketing agency Social Soup. Sharon, welcome.
Hello,
Thanks for joining us. And Tyler O'Day, the Director of Social Media at Empire State Realty Trust, the company perhaps best known for the Empire State Building in New York City. Tyler, welcome to Perth.
Thank you for having me. It was quite the journey, but I'm here.
You made it. You made it. Yeah. I always feel that's the furthest you can travel around the planet is from New York to Perth.
Every other trip from now on will be very easy.
Very easy. So easy. Excellent. I mean, you guys also not from Perth, I should say. So welcome to Perth.
Thank you.
But seems less dramatic when you're coming from the east coast of Australia, I guess.
A little bit less.
Yeah. All right, everyone ready?
Let's
Do it.
Time to do a hard refresh. All right, since the year 2000, influence as a medium or as a tactic for reaching audiences has kind of shifted from just being about big brands, sort of that Nicole Kidman, Chanel No. 5, Baz Luhrmann type ad thing, to like endorsements from micro creators about all manner of products and services and movements and lifestyles or whatever it might be. If we zoom in on the last 5 years, and Sharon, I want to start with you. What's the single biggest shift in the way that influence is used in marketing that feels permanent to you, structural, that might last into the future rather than just like, a fad or a passing moment?
Yeah, look, I think the last 5 years is, post-COVID, isn't it, really? Yeah. And during the COVID era was really the ascendance of TikTok.
Yeah.
That was kind of, we were all stuck in our houses. What else do people do? And they create dances and watch what each other's doing. So I think the kind of less polished content is what happened, and video forward is what happened in the last 5 years. When kind of the influencer industry as we know it probably began 15 years ago when Instagram began.
Yep.
It became that kind of ecosystem of influencers. And it began in flat lays. Like that was kind of where influence, we were like, who can create the best looking flat lay? And it was very, one dimensional, very just highly curated, highly polished, to where we are now, which is raw, authentic. That's the stuff that cuts through and gets noticed and has that human connection, which is ultimately when influence works best.
And is that a structural change that you can see happening, or are we maybe cycling back to flat lay vibes? Part of me misses the flat lay.
Who knows? Will we go back to tape decks and probably not. No, I think the video is here to stay.
Yeah.
The realness of that, the humanness of that. Obviously, there's challenges with AI, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But I think that is what's here to stay, and that kind of more live, connected feeling.
Yeah, excellent. Tyler, in the work that you do, obviously the Empire State Building has got its own sway and influence itself. What do you think is something permanent that's changed and will continue to inform this kind of work in the next 5, 10 or longer years?
Yeah, I think before TikTok, I think, your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, your influence was so greatly tied to how big your audience was. But now that the fence has come down, I guess, it really doesn't matter how many followers you have anymore in places like Instagram or a place like TikTok or now even YouTube Shorts. As long as whatever you're making is touching that cultural zeitgeist, it's going to break through the noise. So I think, especially on the Empire State Building front, in our first few years there, we were really looking at, okay, how much of an audience does someone has? How much reach is that going to get us? But now we're much more interested in being involved with someone who is really touching upon that cultural moment at the time. I think one of our best examples was there are these two folks named Marty and Missy in New York City. They're both wait staff at a restaurant in Brooklyn called Bernie's. And they just had created these kind of post-shift characters that speak in this almost like broken backwards Eastern European type dialect. It's English, but it's not English. And they really they had a moment and they came to the Empire State Building. So finding moments like those where the characters or the trends that folks have created for themselves are really striking the cultural moment is kind of where we're leaning towards, as opposed to, all right, how many followers does somebody have?
That's interesting, because then that implies that then influence becomes more transient rather than something evergreen that you as a personality or creator hold. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that is simultaneously an opportunity for folks, but also a challenge for people to continue to find ways to reinvent themselves and find new ways to maintain that. Because you can see it all the time. Someone has 4 million followers on TikTok, but their last 20 videos have 300, 400, 500 views. So at some point, a disconnect was made, and they just have to find a new way to kind of reinvent themselves.
Sounds exhausting.
I think it also comes back to what style of influencer they are. Like some influencers are incredible at building communities.
Yes.
They don't think about they think about themselves as obviously a brand that has a community behind them, and they maintain that connection. It's probably not as much about the content that's got to perform on the day-to-day basis. Whereas some influencers are more cultural moment, are more entertainment led, and every piece of content's got to deliver to connect to the audience because their audience isn't a community.
Yes.
So it is different depending on the style of the influencer, I would say. And that nuances is really important.
And often, like, brands say, Missy and Marty sounds like a good example of this, where they want sort of authentic creators that sort of are doing their own thing, that sort of emerge in their own ways, and that is why, they are influential, I guess. And, not just to say, to your point, Sharon, not just like those little moments, but broadly speaking, they might be influential for a period of time or, for a particular community or for a particular topic. But it does seem like we're sort of in a space where it's difficult to determine what is actually authentic or what is performative authenticity. So, I don't want to get too philosophical, but, clearly the algorithm, the big bad algorithm, loves some authenticity vibes. Does that sound right to you, Dan? Does that sound like the word authenticity still actually means anything other than in an algorithmic context?
A little bit. Like yesterday, Sharon talked in her presentation about relevancy and recency rather than reach.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good point in terms of that authenticity. Like it's it's no longer about having 5 million followers. It's about how relevant is this to what we're searching for right now, or what everyone's looking at, what's buzzing in the algorithm, and how recent is it as well?
Yeah.
Like no one cares for something that was 6 months ago if it's already died. It's that 48-hour window that you want to try and attack.
Yeah. And so is authenticity about timeliness then now more than anything?
Well, I think it's still about showing a real human being. But having said that, and obviously we mentioned we're going to dive into this, AI influencers is a really fascinating thing to me, because there's some AI influencers, not so much in Australia, but in other countries. And I know we talked the other night about I'm studying Brazilian Portuguese.
Yes.
There's a huge AI influencer in Brazil, and it started as a chatbot in 2009. It's called Lu do Magalu, which is Magazine Luiza, and 8.1 million followers on Instagram. She just featured in a music video with Anita and DJ Alok.
Wow.
Like huge cultural relevance within Brazil, but obviously that's a Portuguese-speaking market, so it doesn't come over here. We haven't seen it yet here, but it was just mind-blowing to see that kind of following going from 2009 to still being so relevant.
Yeah, that is nuts, especially.
Yeah, I think it's a blend. It's a blending of kind of, as you point, are they influencers, but they certainly have some sort of cultural relevance, and they probably stand out because there's not many of them.
Yeah, well, there is in that market. There seems to be quite a few, but I mean, they're doing partnerships with McDonald's, Maybelline,
So it's more like a character.
Yeah,
if you think about how characters, perform, and we can differentiate between that. And there's a lot of digital AI creators out there now beginning, and they sort of create content like they're at Wimbledon, and they sort of put them in context and things like that. And I think it's interesting for people, and I think people are engaging with it now. But if social was to be flooded with that, I think we would react very differently to that.
Yeah.
I found it interesting as well that the data so far is showing people love the AI influencer if it's obvious that it's an AI influencer. But when they try and make it too human or try and pretend that it's not, that's when people switch off as well. So they still look for they're fine accepting an AI influencer
but they
as
don't
long
be
as it's
fooled.
authentically known as an AI influencer.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting
But I
concept
think
of
that's when the challenge happens, right? Because if I know that, but then when I see that piece of content that's just been served to me in my For You page or in the algorithm, and I saw this only this week where it's an AI influencer, and I know it's an AI influencer, but all the reactions in the comments were not reacting like she was an AI influencer, because they're just being served this beautiful woman in this content, and they're thinking she's real, because they're not clicking on her part. And it's clear when you click on the bio, she's an AI. It says she's an AI influencer. But if you're just looking in the feed and you're just looking in the moment in that content, you don't know.
Yeah. Well,
it's if people don't dig deeper, and people often don't.
They don't. When was the last time you dig deep on a
I do. That's my what I do. But I think the vast majority just see something in your feed and you respond and react to it.
Yeah, viscerally in some way. Yeah. Well, look, I was going to save this for later, but let's stare deeply into this part of the crystal ball now,
abyss,
right? Or the abyss. Yeah. All right.
Let's content Armageddon.
Let's pretend that it's the 27th of August, 2035, right? 10 years in the future. I said the other day that we had our hoverboards, and someone was like, well, do we? Maybe we don't. Human influences still around, but, that mix of the AI avatar, if you like, creates scale, and maybe even allows brands to build their own influencers and communities that maybe are less about cultural moments, as Tyler mentioned, but more about long-term communities, as Sharon mentioned. Does that sound like a feasible reality, desirable reality, interesting reality? What do you think, Tyler?
In the sense that there's just more of a commingling of both, as opposed to...
Correct. There's more of a commingling of both, yeah.
And how did you frame it? What type of reality? An acceptable reality?
Is it acceptable? Is it compelling? Is it troubling?
I think, to what Sharon said before, I think it lies in disclosure. I think, and this doesn't just apply to AI, I think when people are trying to be deceptive on the internet in any capacity, I think it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think that goes, over the last... It's gotten better, and I can't tell whether that's because I just keep commenting angry things at it, or because Meta's actually trying to weed it out. But some of the...
I think it's definitely you, yeah.
But some of the things that I would see on Facebook, especially over the last year of, and it's clear, you can tell what's going on. They're trying to figure out who are the most easily deceived, so they can then take what is happening on this AI thing and then try and scam them in other capacities. So that is what really worries me. And I think, we spoke about media literacy yesterday, especially with the under 16 Australian ban. I think on the other side of that coin, I think there is, a media, or especially not necessarily media, but digital literacy issue, especially with the elderly populations that are on the internet, and those who might have been susceptible to phone scams before are now going to be susceptible to the digital scams that might be happening on these platforms. So again, I worry about, I think there's absolutely a place for AI and social. I think especially for a lot of the kind of remedial things that we might do day in and day out, they can help a lot of our careers be easier. But the full-blown AI content creation, the proliferation of it worries me, where those type of things happen. So again, it's all about how much you can control it, how much you can regulate it, but also not regulate it to the point where it loses that creative edge and aspect.
Yeah. In your line of work, though, Sharon, obviously you're working to connect brands with those communities that are bound together by a certain personality, mostly, right?
Yeah.
If that community is being bound together by an AI creator or influencer or avatar, and the brand still wants to access it, do you facilitate access?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the community and the, as you said, the disclosure that's with that. I mean, I follow a lot of AI influencers who are more in the fashion space, and I know it's not real, but I love the creativity and I love the style that somebody behind that has created, right? So if there was an AI influencer and I'm a fashion brand and I'm trying to tap into that community, then I think that's totally acceptable and appropriate because it's a known thing. I mean, I often say, we don't stop watching Jurassic Park because we know the dinosaurs aren't real.
What?
Good example.
Yeah, not real. We know they're CGI.
Yeah.
We know they're not real. We still are entertained by that.
We
I
suspend
think
disbelief.
We suspend. Well, not even. Yeah, we just. It's the show,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So are we there to have a show? Are we there to be entertained? But I think the line when it becomes blurred, and I do think the platforms are struggling with this. And I don't think it's being talked about a lot, but I do know it's been happening behind the scenes, that you can amplify an AI influencer. And that's what I mean when the platform allows you to put paid behind it.
Yes, yes.
Because they have a lot of rules and regulations about what they'll allow you to put paid behind. So they'll allow you to put paid behind an AI influencer, but not if that influencer is pretending to wear your product. Like if they're saying, "Oh, I'm putting on your lipstick," well, that they're not clearly putting on your lipstick, right? So that's
Somebody's
fake.
written. Yeah, okay.
So they're influencing something, but it's a fake influence moment. Because
Yes.
it's not. Someone can't talk about the lipstick and how it feels, and
It's literally advertising.
it's literally but it's not. It's not. Someone's not having that personal experience.
No,
That's
So
interesting.
it's
That
a
is
very.
interesting.
I think the platforms are really struggling with where they're going to draw the line here.
Yeah, telling
And
them
I
to
think-
shout at them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's okay for them to wear the clothes, but not to talk about the feel of the material or the feel of the cosmetics.
Yeah. So when their influence is
fascinating.
not real,
Yeah.
or their personal
Their experience
experience
isn't
can't
real.
be
Yeah,
real,
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to again how the platforms and how they moderate this, because everyone's going to try everything because everyone wants cheap content, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Content's everywhere, and
Yeah.
I said this yesterday, but actual influence is very rare.
Yes.
I also add to this, I wonder if there's like in the early days of music history, 40s, 50s,
Yes.
there were those singers who labels didn't think would sell because of their looks or because of their weight or
Yes.
because of their ethnicity.
Yes.
So they used an avatar, another human being, to go out and perform those
Yes.
songs and sing those songs. And then the same thing happened with like Milli Vanilli.
Oh,
So Milli Vanilli, they had these great songs. The guys couldn't sing. So they got them to go out and lip sync the whole thing.
but it didn't really work out well for them.
Well, no, and that's
in the
my
end.
point is you get these eras where it almost democratized the idea of
Yep.
being a creator, like
Yep.
someone who maybe isn't societally attractive
Yep.
or who isn't confident in themselves can create an AI and go out and be their personality because they might have
yes.
a sparkling wit.
Yes,
They go
yes.
out and they create this AI that's still their personality. It's just a persona that they've got in front of them. Which I think is kind of cool because you're democratizing that ability to access influence. But if it comes out like a Milli Vanilli and someone finds out that's not the real you,
Yeah.
then complete authenticity shuts down.
Yes. Because then otherwise, but then again, it goes back to the point about performative authenticity. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is me, but I'm performing this character in sort of, with this AI avatar is performing.
If it's known and disclosed, though, right? You can
Yeah.
be a character.
You can be a
Like
yeah.
the singer Sia. Like, does anyone know what she looks like? But she hides behind a character.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably okay if that someone chooses that methodology, but it's known that they're a character.
They're open about it.
And they're open
Yeah.
about it, like a pseudonym or a
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, look, I think that is interesting.
That is
That's
interesting,
probably what
actually.
will happen, and people will be entertained by that and probably okay,
Yeah.
as long as they know.
I think one thing that gives me pause in the whole AI thing, and it kind of goes beyond that. I was watching. I'm a bit of a political nerd. I was watching the BBC like Prime Minister's Questions years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's a deep cut. For an American,
deep.
that's a deep cut. Yeah.
And they were talking about.
You should see ours. It's brutal.
I love them all. I wish we had it. I wish we had it in the United States. But they were talking about studying loneliness, and I didn't. I kind of thought, oh, that's interesting. But what has kind of started to show itself, and I'm not sure if they've proliferated down here at all, but in the United States, like these neighborhood Facebook groups or these town Facebook groups are really, really popular. And you see people go in there to ask questions or do things that you would think they would have a contact in their world already where they would go and do that. So I think there is a loneliness epidemic going on. And I think, again, with this whole AI thing, I think people could get into these pitfalls where they are leaning on, these AI bots, avatars, et cetera, to fill that void. And part of it's like, oh, it's good that there's some type of companionship there, but again, it's not, it's not real, it's not organic. So again, it just gives me a little worry.
There was that case recently of the guy in the US where he went down a real rabbit hole when the AI, I think he started asking about
mathematics,
about maths questions, and then he
there was the shared delusion between the two of them, between ChatGPT and him.
But I think the issue there was like an AI tool should pick up when someone's having a manic episode.
Yes.
And go, whoa, hang on a minute, back out, like a human would.
Backpedal,
So if they fed a mental breakdown.
Yes.
So I think you're right. Loneliness, mental health. Like I think it's a tricky one to manage as long as the models need to be better trained for these things.
Yeah.
South Park did an episode this week or the last week came out, and it was basically on that. It was ChatGPT, and Randy was having marital troubles, and he's like in bed with his wife. And he says, we really need to talk to someone, honey. And she's like, I'm so happy to hear you say that. That's amazing. And he pulls his phone out. ChatGPT, we're having marriage troubles. And she immediately switches off. And he says, my wife won't talk to you, ChatGPT. And ChatGPT says, well, at least one of you is working on the marriage.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Oh my
it's
God.
true. I mean,
Talk about the zeitgeist, right? South Park, it's like been on the finger on the pulse for like
every time,
a quarter of a century.
But that was it. Throughout the episode, multiple characters were like, oh, my business is failing. What do I do? And ChatGPT's like, you're smart. You've got great ideas.
Yeah.
You should do this. You could take over the world.
Yeah.
And it was saying it to every single one of them.
The sycophantic kind of,
So all this, reminds me of, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it feels like influencers are increasingly looking like shop windows with, affiliate links and their own TikTok stores and commission codes and all that kind of stuff, And Dan, you obviously, in your work, you're very concerned with sort of the health of online communities and I wonder, like, do you think in that context, has that method of communicating and engaging with people and building communities been overly commoditized? Or is it maturing into a real commercial model with economic power?
I think it is maturing. I mean, technology's always evolved and everything changes. One of the things coming back to authenticity and sort of the COVID era was creators used to have like 3-point lighting, and they had to have beautiful titles and nice animations and slick sound and perfect mics. And then it became this thing of creators talking to their phone in their car. And that became the new model of authenticity. And now that's become performative authenticity, because now everyone's like, well, why did you pull your phone out in that moment?
why are you brushing your hair while you're...
Yeah. And that was a real thing. It was like, if you want to, creators were saying, the videos that sort of educate people on how to become a better creator were like, oh, well, if you brush your hair, then people think this is authentic. And if you're applying makeup, you'll get X many seconds longer views.
I think it's just that content format evolving, where people it's uncomfortable to watch someone just standing there talking. So it's like if you're doing something else, it's like it's easier to watch. Your brain is like watching the movement rather than just looking at that individual. So I mean, it is how TV's made. Like it's kind of moving more into sort of that sort of slice of life, which is much easier to watch and slip into. So
I remember it was a Snapchat a few years ago. There was a trend where people were using Subway Surfer. I don't know if you remember that video game. So it was like a Subway Surfer, someone playing Subway Surfer or someone playing Minecraft, and while they're playing, there was someone doing a voiceover of a story, reading a Reddit post, or and that became a huge thing. It was like the only way to keep people engaged long enough to listen to the story was to have that visual element there that just distracts the brain a little bit.
I guess what I'm really curious about is the commercialized, like the fact that they're turning into shop fronts to a certain extent.
Yeah.
That is, maybe it's an evolution in the format, or is it an evolution in the commercial model where they realize they have economic power, and so instead of just being a connection between brands and a community of interest to those brands, they go, well, actually, why don't I sell some of your stuff and clip the ticket on the way through?
I think there's a number of things happening in the way that the market is evolving.
Yep.
On one end, to your point, there is creators who are absolute storefronts. and they're kind of more positioned what they call UGC creators. And they aren't necessarily looking to get a following, but they are contracted by brands because they're a, ordinary looking person who's good at holding a camera and telling a story. And they will create content for that brand on a very specific brief, on very specific messaging, and they will become the storefront for that brand, where that brand will probably use it in their paid, they will probably put money behind it. That creator doesn't need a following. But when the creator needs a following and they need a community that they're going to connect to, over commercializing that, and if every post was
You'll never believe what I bought yesterday.
they'll switch off, right?
Yeah.
So creators are very conscious of that, and they're very protective, and they're conscious of who they work with and who they partner with, if they're going to maintain influence over that community. They don't want to just work with any brands, and I think this is something I talked about yesterday, is they don't want to just switch between brands as well. They want longer term partnerships. They want to, partner with a set of brands that they genuinely believe and connect with, and they use them in their everyday life, and they can talk about them because they're really endorsing something that they believe in. So I think it's when a creator loses that and will just take the money, then that they know that hurts their audience, and it hurts their connection. But at the same time, I think, influence is anyone. Anyone's an influencer. And I think Tyler said this yesterday, that I thought was a good point, that the way you set up content around the Empire State Building is to every visitor, you want to become a content creator. So I think that'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, and that's how we approach our influencer partnerships. We don't pay anyone, but we also think we can offer folks something unique that they can't get anywhere else. But in that same vein, we absolutely there's a few red lines you can't cross when you make content at the Empire State Building. I'm sure you can guess what they are. But beyond that, we don't put parameters on what people want to do there, because we show on our channels what a great vessel it can be for content creation, and we want to offer other people the same venue to do so. And yeah, like you said, we're always trying to find ways to make our experience more shareable and social. And because it's not interactivity when you talk about museums anymore, it's not necessarily about touching a touch screen or doing something dynamic. The interactivity is sharing that externally for folks who aren't even there with you.
It's interesting, yeah.
I was intrigued actually yesterday. You mentioned that the building has 16 million colors that you can light it up in.
Yes.
What decisions are made on how to do a custom light show for someone? Or is this something someone would come to you and pay to create that light show? Or would you say, hey, we know you've got this thing coming up, we'll create this for you? As you say, you don't pay creators. So. Yeah,
so the lighting, they're kind of, light shows and lighting the building are kind of two different animals. Like the tower lightings themselves are handled by a completely different secret society at the Empire State Building, because if folks don't get their lighting that they want, people are upset, and we don't want anyone to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
The light shows themselves, though, those we work much more hand in hand, because those are typically with brand partners of ours. Like the one we did last week was with Netflix for Demon Hunters, and so, but the money exchange there is really for a lighting design team.
Right.
A guy named Mark Brickman, who used to do the lighting designs for Pink Floyd and the Grateful Dead, is also our in-house lighting designer. His team for our tower light shows. So, and they're always finding new ways to update our LEDs and do newer, cooler things.
And for something like that, so if you're working with Netflix and you've got the Demon Hunters activation, do they come to you and go, we've got a night where we want to do media and influencers, we're going to have 50 influencers in here? Is that something you often get with the brands you work with, that they will bring a set of content creators to activate what they're doing, so so it's broadcast to a lot more people?
Lesser so on that side, because the thing that is tough about the Empire State Building is it's limited space, really, for something like that. So what we did with the Demon Hunters cast is they came to the building, we did a lighting ceremony downstairs, and then with the cast who was there, we created content with them in tandem with Netflix. If someone comes with us with something like that, it's absolutely something that we can look into, but typically it almost overcomplicates the process, because we're trying to move, even moving 20 people through the building, just because we're so dependent on elevators.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
If you build it up to 80, it just takes long.
Forever. Yeah. I want to stare back into the crystal ball, and I want to talk about the kids, the youth, as we were saying, Generation Alpha, the first generation to be born completely in the 21st century. I think the oldest of this group is like turning 15 now, and they're beginning to shape as consumers. I can't believe I said that as a human being, but also as people. Wow. Tell me you're on a marketing podcast without telling you, right? But they're growing up, I guess, with these more exceptional bullshit detectors, given they're exposed to AI avatars, given this is like a native thing. Media is not prevalent. Traditional media is not prevalent in their field of view. So all this stuff is part of their DNA in a way that even for Gen Z it isn't. Do you think this generation will, I guess, reject influence altogether, understanding that it is a brand mediated way of getting entertainment, getting content, or do they go back to a more pure form of influence than perhaps we're seeing now?
A good case example at the moment is the Rizzler.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm really intrigued by his success because he's everywhere. He's like on Jimmy Fallon a week ago, and he's on Theo Von's podcast, and he's on every podcast you see. But his family, who he came up with, they've all fallen off. So people saw through the inauthenticity of the dad pushing the family, but they love the Rizzler. And he's of that generation. So I'd look at him as an example of the first big name in that generation that I can see.
I think the point is, if there's a number of research studies that have been done recently, and the number one career aspiration of Generation Alpha is to be a content creator, a YouTuber or whatever. That's the number one. It used to be an astronaut. It used to be
secret agent.
Yeah, whatever. But it's to be a content creator. So I think that's a pretty good indicator of what they think of it. And I saw a Deloitte study recently and I was surprised by this, that 30% of all Gen Z say that they've got some sort of side hustle in content creation, right? So Gen Alpha's just grown up in it. They're amongst it. They're naturally content creators. They want to be one. And they will look up to those that are. At the same time, Gen Z, I've got a Gen Z daughter, and they have a response to this as well, but it's much more taking it into private spaces.
Yes.
So they're aware of the dangers and the pitfalls of
the observation
sharing too much online.
Yeah.
And they retreat to private spaces, whether that be Snapchat or DMs, so those sorts of things.
Their own little closed chats.
I think there will always be that broadcast, but I think a lot of the influence for that generation will be what we call dark social, where we won't be able to visibly see it, but it will be happening at scale. And that's a very different way for brands to engage.
Yes.
Yeah, I wondered about this when I was on the panel yesterday talking about the youth social media ban. And there was someone I spoke to in the green room yesterday who was talking about Meta has rolled out WhatsApp stories in the Australian market, specifically because the ban's coming in. They think that younger generation, because they're no longer allowed on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever, they'll miss
LinkedIn for sure. Yeah.
Right.
And they'll probably have private group stories. Yeah, that's kind of what they do. They
private
share
groups
with their close friends, and a lot. They share a lot, constantly. It's a constant stream of sharing.
Constant stream of consciousness. Then. Yeah.
So
I wonder how that relates as well to what Tyler said before about the loneliness epidemic, because there's a human need to be seen and to feel like you're appreciated. And if everyone's not communicating so much in real life offline, that's where they get that need fulfilled?
That's a great question for us to end on. Thank you, Dan. And actually, before we wrap it up, we have just enough time to do the refresh round. So these questions are wide open. Give me your hottest hot takes. The hotter, the better. And in fact, I've been getting a lot of similar answers to some of this. So I'd like to understand if I get something different today. In 2050, will brands as we know them still exist, or will we have hit refresh on that whole idea?
I think some will be gone. I think a lot of it. I spoke yesterday in the legacy side of things. I think there are a lot of. You can look. I'm not going to name names because with my luck, they'll want to partner with the Empire State Building next year and th'll find this. But You can look at some legacy brands who have tens of millions of followers on Instagram or Facebook, and they get less than 0.1% engagement on their stuff. So their slow death is already happening. I don't think it's going to be an across-the-board extinction, but I think eventually, you see it all the time, brands will spin themselves into the ground long enough on social media that they'll be really screaming into the void. So some will absolutely peel away, but not all of them.
Yeah, okay. What's one marketing buzzword you'd refresh straight into the garbage?
Marketing buzzword. Gosh.
Oh, unhinged.
Unhinged?
Yeah, unhinged.
Like unhinged.
Unhinged content?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's become a catch-all
Right.
for anything that's not like straight down the line corporate.
Anything's unhinged, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and corporates maybe aspire to being unhinged, which is when you know that should go in the garbage. Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I do think, to your point, that's kind of the brain, what they call it, the brain rot content.
Yeah.
Means
brain rot can go in
nothing,
the garbage.
but it
AI
just is
flop.
trying to get people's attention, right?
Yes.
Imagine if that was all that you were seeing.
Yeah.
Like that would definitely be brain rot.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
maybe brain rot needs
Brain
to
rot.
die.
I'm with you on that one.
All right, if AI got a chance to refresh your job description, what would it throw out? What would it say? Oh, you don't need to do this anymore.
That's a tough one.
It's got to be something.
Probably the moderation aspect for
Yeah,
my job.
yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
I imagine
great.
AI is like, I'll take on to that.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening yet. It doesn't get the nuance.
Yeah.
Any admin, like I hate admin.
So people have said that, Sharon. I think that's what they want AI to say. I wonder if that's what it actually
Please
would
take
say.
every bit of admin from my life.
Yeah. If you could refresh the internet for the better and get rid of one platform or channel, what would it be?
4chan.
4chan. Yeah. Okay.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually probably you've done the internet a service there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gone. I mean, look, I'd say it was someone in the sessions yesterday were making a really good point about, maybe it was you, Dan, about the fact that it's actually a bit scary what's happened with X or Twitter, in that it was maybe it was anyway, that it was a deliberate strategy from Elon to try and get the sort of more progressive.
That was Meg,
out of it, so it becomes much more of a one sort of side and actually
An
a
echo
much
chamber.
more influencing vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah. well,
So I think if that is what potentially could have happened and is happening, I think it's probably better for it just to go.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you can't. There's no way for anyone to coalesce around that area.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they certainly feel very similar. 4chan and X now. That's the
Yeah,
case,
well, I
you
thought
know?
it was an interesting point Meg made, because she's like, if that's a deliberate strategy, it wasn't just I'll drive them to this one platform. It was I'll separate them
Yeah.
so
Diaspora.
they can't.
divide and
So,
conquer.
unite.
so
Yeah.
they can't come back together and
Yes.
mobilize
Mobilise,
against
yeah.
whatever's there.
And speaking of Gen Alpha, when they refresh marketing, they look back at us. What are they going to roast us for the most?
Everything.
I think they're going to roast us most for white papers. That's what I think. I think
For
that's
what?
good. For white papers and ebooks.
For white papers
All
and
those
ebooks.
lead magnets and downloadables. Yeah.
The funnel.
Yeah.
They'll probably really roast us for the funnel.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you ever think it worked like that, people?
Yeah.
I get my nephew roasting people for using songs with lyrics that are specific to what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, it's so cliche. Like, why?
Like you're on the road trip and you use it on the road again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Be more
I
creative.
love coming up with a song for whatever you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I enjoy going through like, this song fits it. But yeah, some people are like the specific lyric that relates to exactly what I'm doing.
Too literal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be tough out there on the
Already
internet, I
mock us.
think, really.
That's because they probably don't have the breadth of listening that we do. Like, because they're being funneled down the algorithms and
Yeah, just TikTok sounds,
a
yeah.
very narrow stream of music.
I loved your music yesterday, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Well, this has been
So
an excellent
catchy.
chat. Like this, thank you so much. It's been really interesting. Thank you for joining the studio to talk about this. Dan D'Souza, Sharon Smith, Tyler O'Day. Enjoy the rest of State of Social. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
If you like this refreshing conversation, you're going to love the rest of Hard Refresh. Join me and the smart minds of the State of Social 2025 crew as we get into all the big topics to show us where we're headed in the next 25 years of digital marketing. All episodes are now live on all your favorite podcast players. And don't forget, sharing is caring. So tell a friend if you like what you hear and give us a rating and a review so the show can be found by more people. Hard Refresh is a co-production of State of Social and Original Audio. The show is produced by me, Andres Lopez Varela, and Aaron Matthews from Original Audio. A big thanks to Cal McLean for production support and to our executive producer, Meg Coffey. I'm ALV. Join me next time when we hit refresh all over again.